This is an update on the admin report, so we can go into the second item real quick. The second item is there was a proposal brought to our attention last week on an economic opportunity at the port, which is called Project Pine. And Randy just gave you all a copy of that. It's another economic development opportunity that has exceptional promise to bring about 320 jobs to the area, as well as investing $1 billion and in the first 3 years with the possible second $1 billion investment in the second year. And it came rather quickly to us for various reasons, but it came to our attention last week. And what I did talk to the port officials and restate your position, and it's been customary your position whether you give one rebate or the other, but not both. And they will have to come to this board seeking your approval for that particular abatement, whatever they choose to do. And right now, more likely it will be property tax abatement. Okay, so there's more development coming. It's just a perspective right now, and I can honestly say that we are on a very, very short list. This is an international company, and the only location within the United States we're looking at is Shreveport. And so hopefully, if we keep our fingers crossed, we'll be able to help land that deal for our community. If there's any questions, ma'am, I'll be glad to answer it for you all. And also, I did invite Ms. Brenda from the port to be here today as our guest to answer any questions that I'm not able to answer for you with respect to that. But right now, the name is Project Pine because that's the code in to use to keep it confidential until the deal becomes a final deal.
Commissioner Cox?
So we were the only one inside the United States, but that's not to say that they're not looking elsewhere within the...
There are 4 locations, Brenda. Brenda, would you come forward, please, so we can tag team this together?
So,
Yes, there are. There are only 4 sites. One's Europe, one Southeast Asia, and Canada. And as of the end of December, all other sites in the U.S. were eliminated. So the port is the only site in the U.S. they're looking at. The client has actually made the statement that they would very much like to have a presence in the U.S. As a matter of fact, they were actually going to have a decision on the 2 final sites at the end of the year. But because of President Obama's platform on energy and alternative energy, they actually put off making a decision until after the election, until they could see what could possibly come about in the way of legislation and the benefits that might be there from the U.S. perspective as well. So they're very seriously interested in the U.S.
Could you state your name again and who you're with?
Brenda Levinson with Ford, Shreveport Ocean.
that's all I have.
That's all.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Jenkins?
Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon. How you doing? I just received this a few minutes ago. I'm trying to get a good understanding without breaching, any of the confidentialities that this company want to keep. I respect that. What exactly do they do?
They actually are in the solar energy, and they make basically the brick that becomes the part that goes toward making the solar panels. They actually have operations in Europe. Their capacity right now, even though they have multiple locations in Europe, is sold out through the year 2017. They are definitely going to build a new facility somewhere. They have to.
And they're looking at the Port of Shreveport-Bossier as a site to build a new facility?
Yes, sir. And what they've also committed to do is that they believe that there is enough potential in the United States. They've actually made the commitment that if everything comes about in the U.S. the way they anticipate that it can, they are looking to duplicate this facility in 5 years. That's another $1 billion investment, another 320 employees. And the site they're looking at the port, they picked that site in particular, of 4 sites that we submitted, because they actually can mirror that site, build one and basically mirror the other one.
What information do they have to in support of this idea that they're going to make a $1 billion investment and create 320 jobs? Has any information been furnished on that?
Yes, the project actually came to us through Deloitte Consulting, which is one of the premier consulting companies. They're international. So we actually are working with Deloitte Consulting, and the company, the officials from Project Time, have actually been here and have visited the site, have sat down and visited with officials over this as we put our proposal and plan together. So this was in response to an RFI that came from Deloitte Consulting.
So there is some kind of information out there that supports
Yes, sir.
the proposition about the investment and the number of jobs that can be created?
Yes, sir.
And what are they asking of the parish? What is there something they're asking of us? I thought I heard some comments about tax reduction.
Yes, sir. The same company, consulting company, did the Pratt deal for the port. The Pratt Industry deal is at the port right now. It's the same firm. And they recommend that this area based on their relationship with us when we went through the Pratt negotiations. So they're asking us for a property abatement, property tax abatement. And it's been this board's position to either give one or the other, the sales tax abatement or either the property tax abatement. But they will have to apply and make application and come before you for your final approval on that. But that's what they're asking for, one or the other, as incentive to come here to make this investment.
So procedurally speaking, this matter is going to work its way before the commission
Yes,
to
sir,
make
it is.
some determination
Yes, sir,
about
it is. You always have the final.
that aspect of it.
Yes, sir.
Is there some timetable involved with all this?
No, I mean, it may take months.
Actually, Deloitte Consulting, part of the project team, is with the client right now. They are over there visiting and reviewing the sites, the 4 sites. Deloitte told us that midsummer, which would be sometime in July, if not sooner, they will take the 4 sites down to 2 sites, and those will be the only 2 sites that will actually get a chance to come back in and review the proposal that's on the table and see who's going to move forward to the finish line. So it actually, at this point, is very much on the fast track.
Is any other governmental body being asked to do anything by way of a tax abatement or anything?
They're going to, of course, they qualify for the state's 10-year tax abatement that's actually out there for any manufacturer as long as they meet the NAAQS code, which the project does.
State and the parish, and
Right.
what about Bossier? Is Bossier involved in any kind of way?
I'm not sure to what degree Bossier is involved with it.
Well, actually, the site in Shreveport is in Caddo Parish.
That's in Caddo Parish, that's why this us.
Well, I just want to be certain that, you know, if we're going to be talking about any kind of tax rebates or reductions, anything like that, it makes its way back to this body before any deal gets done.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Jenkins, there are other details we would have to answer for you in detail, like what that is, what's the cost, what's the ramification, what's the gain. All of items need to be discussed as well. So at some point, we'll have to make those discussions with you.
There's
And they
real-
can become more serious about us becoming a competitor or not.
And that's because I think it's a great thing, but I'm just saying it's there's no real tight timetable on it. There's enough time for us to.
Oh, there's
Yes,
absolutely time for us to bring back to you any and all information that you need.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam President.
Commissioner Pearson?
Will they be leasing?
We lease the property out there, right? We don't sell any of the property out at the port. All of that will be leased, and it will be part of the lease negotiation with them.
Okay, but that property is basically already under
Yes, sir.
property tax abatement.
Right. Now, the assets that they build and put on there, of course, they would be subject to taxes as an individual owning on that, even though the land deal would be
Okay.
exempt.
Commissioner Lynn?
What type of incentive is available for local companies to provide for the building of a facility like this? I know that I'll do case in point. Recently, Bolin Company that builds conveyors was competing with companies from all over the world to build conveyors at a facility at the port. Is there anything that we can do to increase the competitiveness of locally based companies that are trying to provide for a facility like this?
No, sir. I mean, we do the same thing for local companies that we try to do in attracting anything that's on an international. I mean, that actually is that is the port's commission. Our job is to help attract new industry or help existing industry like grow and expand, whether they're doing it at the port site or it's to help them in some way to do that at their own facility. One of the things that the port is actually charged with that they can do is that through our ability to do conduit bond financing, we can actually do bond financing to help somebody expand on their own facility. They don't have to be at the port to make that work.
In reference to offering them credits or abatements on taxes, are there ever any stipulations that if that 15% of your purchases need to be done through locally owned businesses or anything to support local government or not local government but local businesses?
There is a percentage piece with that of what is purchased in Louisiana, if it's like an international company, the state of Louisiana. So there is a percentage piece that would be with the local, and those are up under the guidelines that come out of LED for that tax abatement and that property tax piece.
What I'm looking for, if Caddo Parish is being asked to give a tax credit for a company doing business or proposing to do business here, if we could spur growth in other companies in Caddo Parish, they would offset the taxes that we're losing through employment or just increasing the livelihood of our community as a whole. Is there any stipulations in your contracts that though we're taking away from taxable money in this hand, we're spurring growth in other local Caddo Parish businesses in another hand?
No, sir. I mean, our goal is not, it's not to take away from one to give the other. It is try to attract an industry like this Project Pine with $1 billion investment, with the possibility of making that investment in this community again inside of 5 years. Those are projects that it takes more than just the standard package coming out of Baton Rouge to be able to attract a business like that.
At your next meeting, will you bring this up and ask that at least I ask personally, what type of incentives could be offered for local companies?
Sure.
And that if we give them a credit, that they in turn promise to do so much of their purchasing through Caddo Parish businesses?
I'll do that, and I'll also just run this by LED down in Baton Rouge also and ask them if there's a provision that we can go to or something that we can look at to see what would even be available through the state that would help support that.
Thank you. Will you contact me with
Yes, I will.
what you find out? Thank you. That's all. Thank you, Madam President.
Commissioner Baker?
Do you know what their solar panels, what kind are they? Are they electric or gas, heat or electric or which?
Now, these, they definitely are just going to operate regular solar panels. They will be the kind that operate with the sun. They will pull the energy from the sun.
Or electricity?
Yeah, in other words, they will make the panels that will go into industrial use, even into home use. They will be supplying the bricks that they can make panels for any use, whether it's home, commercial, industrial, and all of it is with the idea of being able to conserve energy by installing the solar panels instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Escaday?
Questions answered, thank you.
Let me ask, in order to get down to the 4, I guess, sites now, is there a certain proposal on the table from the port?
Yes, sir. There was a proposal that was prepared in November by LED that was submitted to Project Pine, and based on that, they made the decision to leave the U.S. in the race and the running. Now, we've been working with LED. They actually submitted another proposal over the weekend to them. This is the one that they will take back when they go back to the client in June, and are actually discussing with them over the phone this week, because they'll be back in touch with us to talk through it and walk through it and clarify any questions they may have. But this is what they will be trying to make the decision on.
Okay, so the current proposal only includes state money at this time? Does it include anything that has to do with the parish at this point?
At this point, we told them in the proposal that we would come before the parish and ask for the opportunity to do this for them, but it was contingent upon a parish vote.
But the numbers that have been crunched within the proposal, is it with the option of one rebate or the other one or both?
No, sir. It was put before them with the option that this was an option to put in it to show them that if everything came together, what is the best proposal that we're laying on the table right now, knowing that the piece with the parish commission is subject to approval by the commission.
Right, I mean, and the same with the state.
Right.
I understand, but there has to be some level of commitment that goes along with this proposal. So I'm saying the piece that was put in for the parish, does it include this rebate option or this rebate option or both?
It's doing both.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And also, Commissioner Lynch, that they understand that the parish positions, we give one or the other, and not both, unless they come before you and ask for something different than what you customarily have done in the past.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lynch.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda.
Thank
you. Commissioner, go ahead, I'm sorry. Oh, the next item is our legislative update from Mr. Grubbs.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I want to just talk to you about money a little bit today. As y'all know from following the daily reports you get from Baton Rouge, the money appropriation bills have left the House and are now in the Senate. And as y'all are aware, most of the money that we actually see through direct appropriation down there is to fund a number of programs at juvenile court. I know that Mr. Cox and Mr. Scott and Joe Duke on behalf of BYJ have gone down to Baton Rouge a number of times to lobby for these funds. It is a very difficult environment down there. Some of the money that I'm told that some of the money that Mr. Duke has been able to secure for programs related to juvenile services in the past are being cut this year. The one thing I particularly want to bring to your attention, the big dollar item that we address every year through state funding is the operation of the STAR Boot Camp, which is a Department of Juvenile Services function. We don't have money secured for that this year. Last year we got $300,000 for it, which basically funds the program. If we're not successful in getting that money this year, and things are not looking good right now, that program is only funded through July 1st of this year. So if the money does not come from the legislature, then that program would, in effect, be unfunded beginning July 1st, subject to anything that y'all might do. To the extent that y'all interact with with our delegation, particularly the Senate portion of our delegation, it would be good to keep talking to them about this money. Not optimistic. I will tell you that to a person, all three of our senators, Senator Shaw, Senator Teague, and Senator Jackson, have been very helpful to us in the past in providing these monies. And whether we're going to get them this year or not remains to be seen, but I just want you to know the outlook is not good. It's not helped any by the fact that there is a perception in the legislature that Caddo Parish has plenty of money because of all this oil and gas stuff. And we tried to explain to them that that's not really true when it comes to the programs that we're asking them to fund down there, but the perception is still there, which adds a complication to it. There's another bill that y'all are aware of that Representative Morris has put forward to try to redistribute some of the severance taxes collected by the state over Haynesville Shale, to distribute some of that up here in northwest Louisiana. That bill has not been heard in the original committee yet, and it's going to be very difficult to move that bill, again, for the same reason of the perception that the state may need the money more than we do. So I'm not sure that bill, how much chance that bill has this year. So I just want to give y'all a realistic picture of what's going on money-wise. I'm assuming that these daily reports that y'all get give you pretty good information on the non-monetary things going on in Baton Rouge, but I wanted you to know that. And subject to your questions, the only other thing I'll mention is that I did send y'all an email earlier today about Senate Bill 186 that I would just commend to y'all's reading. Some of y'all probably haven't had a chance to see it yet, but if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to respond to them either by email or at Thursday's meeting or whatever. That's all I have, Madam President, subject to questions.
Did you say that John was gonna quit smoking?
Somebody's got to support the tobacco farmer.
Will you finish, Mr. Wilson?
Yes, ma'am. Here's my report back.
Okay.
Who's introducing the Star Boot Camp bill?
There's not a bill, Commissioner. The way this is getting, it's all in House Bill 1. There's not a specific bill for it. The way it works is, in the past, our two representatives on the House Appropriations Committee, Representative Morris, Representative Jackson Williams, have helped us on that side, and then Senator Cheek and Senator Jackson are on the corresponding committee in the Senate. Although Senator Shaw has been very helpful to us in the past while he's been down there too. So all three folks know about the problem. We just it just appears to be, I'm not saying if it was hopeless, I wouldn't be taking your time here telling you about this, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, as y'all communicate with these folks during the session, if we're going to get any money for STAR, they're going to have to understand that this is a priority item of funding as far as this body is concerned. And we've done everything we can to communicate that to them, but
Is it in the appropriations budget, or
No.
it's not in?
no, it needs to be added.
Oh,
That's the problem. It's never added until it gets to the Senate. That's just the way all this stuff works. And so, in past years, we've been in the same situation now, the same situation that we are now. But we've also, in past years, had vibes that things were going to work out, and this year those vibes are not there.
okay.
And the main thing that I wanted y'all to know is that there's a serious possibility the STAR Boot Camp won't be funded come July 1st.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Commissioner McCulloch?
Yes, Mr. Wilson, on last week, we traveled to the Capitol, and we had an opportunity to visit with the House and the Senate, and as a part of the review summary, Ms. Baker and Mr. Pearson, I know you were there. I have forgotten the young man's name, but he was Roland. When he gave his review summary of the different bills, I heard him along with Commissioner Baker, because of course we made an inquiry with Senator Lydia Jackson. I heard him reference House Bill 840, which had to do with parish appropriations, and it wasn't listed anywhere on any of the sheets that were distributed, as far in relations to House bills, Senate bills. I never did really get a response from Senator Jackson, but I would like for the administration to search out and seek out House Bill 840 and maybe give us some feedback on 30 as to what that bill was actually addressing in light of appropriations for the parishes on Thursday. Thank you.
Commissioner Dominique?
What is, so there's a possibility the Star Boot Camp wouldn't be funded beginning July 1st?
That's my understanding, yes.
That's, the Star Boot Camp, it's basically school for children who have gotten kicked out or been dismissed from school, correct?
Not necessarily kicked out, but problem kids who are having some behavioral problems. They're not kicked out of school, they still go to school too. But it's an intervention type of program, so it doesn't lead to that.
Well, I guess my question is, what is the school board's relationship to this?
School board is actually housed at school, at the school campus. And
Do what now?
it's housed at the school campus, Oak Terrace.
Well, but I guess my point is, should the school board be helping out to try to fund this
Fully funded.
if it's not funded? Because, you know, they're getting money from the state to teach these children. That's what ultimately it is. Isn't it a teaching tool for the children?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Dominic, about 2 weeks ago, Commissioner Matthew Lynn and Edwin Scott and I went and visited with Dr. Dawkins and asked specifically for funding assistance. And they said they were currently evaluating programs and moving things around. And he was going to take about 2 weeks and give us an answer to our question whether or not they can help out. But that was our second attempt to try to get the school board to assist us in funding. A year ago, we met with Tyler when she was there and actually for the same help, and we were told no. So we went back to the well again one more time to see if we can get some help under new leadership, and we were told that he would have to take a look at it and see before he gives us an answer, and we're still waiting on the answer. It's been about 3 weeks now, so we do need to follow up and ask him if he made a decision whether or not the school board can help us fund that program, because we think it's beneficial to them as well as us.
How much does the state normally give us? Is it
$275,000.
Thank you.
I see no other commissioners. I just want to remind
Got
everyone,
somebody there. Somebody there?
Finish the admin report.
yes, he's finished with his admin. You're on now, Commissioner Pearson. But Dr. Fleming will be meeting with the commissioners after our work session today at 4:30, so I want to remind everybody about that. And also in July, we'll only have one meeting because of the NACO conference. That meeting was canceled earlier this year, the second meeting in July. So when we're putting forth ordinances or whatever we have, just keep in mind that we'll only be meeting once in July. That's July 6th and the 9th, and the following meeting will be the first week in August. So just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. Commissioner Pearson?
Yes, I was referring to Commissioner McCullough's House Bill 840. That has to do with Emergency Preparedness Advisory Committee.
Okay. It doesn't have to do with parish appropriations? There
No,
was
ma'am,
one
no.
that he mentioned. Do you know which one that was? Because I'm kind of interested.
I
to know
remember
what's-
him, I remember him talking about it, but I don't have the exact bill. I mean, I probably have it at home with the rest of my stuff, but 840 is about emergency preparedness and that the parish president is in charge. That's what it's about.
And so parish appropriations was included in that to some degree?
No, not in,
I
not
just
in,
remember him addressing some appropriations to the parish.
well, it was to, and I'm sorry for the dialogue.
Just have a call rolling. Just have a call rolling.
No, it was, when he talked about parish appropriations, he was talking about the, what Charles had mentioned in regards to the monies from the oil and gas coming back to the parish, more coming to the parish rather than to the state.
Okay.
That's those appropriations, and I'm trying to think of the name that it was referred to, but I don't know what bill it was. But like Charles said, everybody always assumes that Caddo already has enough money, so we don't need to get any additional funds from that appropriation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pierce.
Commissioner Escaday?
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Wilson, I understand that we are anticipating proceeds from a timber sale. Could you bring us up to speed on that and the details and what's happening with that?
Yes, sir, I can. About a year ago, so the commission passed ordinance to allow us to sell timber on the North Shreveport Industrial Compound, Park. And we did make an initial sale of the timber to the tone of $28,000. And I think $8,000 goes to the North Shreveport Industrial Board, and $20,000 goes to the Caddo Parish. We did run into an issue with the supervisory board, and it being slightly defunct. But I think Ms. McCullough was able to have a meeting with them on May 9th, ma'am. Is that serve me well?
Lawfully, legally active.
Yes, ma'am. On May 9th, you had a meeting with them?
Yes, May 6th.
May 6th. Thank you, ma'am. And right now, I think the issue is we have a pending sale of timber. We went out to get full quotes. They range from $80,000 to $187,000. And I think a warehouser contacted us, and they were uncomfortable in proceeding with the sale of the timber because of the supervisory board not being able to sign the documents. And we can't go forward until that board signs the document. And I think that's where we are right now. So we are at a stalemate pretty much until we make another demand on them to sign the documents. Is that right, Larry? Yeah, okay. So I think that's what's
Is
right.
there no supervisory board?
As far as I know, there were only 2 members currently on the board. And when Ms. McCullough had met with them on the 6th, there were 3.
No, there are 4 members, actually 5. There are actually 5 alive and living
Okay.
that was appointed to the board in 2001 that's still lawfully and legally members of that board. May I say something, Chairperson?
I'm not finished yet, thank you.
But I think the issue is we need them to sign the document, that supervisory board, because the best we can ascertain, the supervisory board has oversight for the assets at that park. And they
But they're acting really as a pass-through.
Yes, sir.
It's our money,
Yes, sir, it is.
and that board is active,
Yes, sir, I
as
believe it
far
is.
as we know.
Yes, sir.
When do the appointments expire? Any of them? Are they all
2003.
2003?
Yes, sir.
But they've all been reappointed
Excuse me.
each time.
Have they? Sorry?
They're reappointed.
I'm sorry. I'll be finished in a minute. I'm talking to Mr. Wilson. And are they reappointed? Do we know that for a fact?
No, sir, I don't know. They've not been reappointed.
Legal know that? Okay, and have we made a request of them to go ahead and sign their paperwork?
We try to, could I defer that for 1 second and let Larry talk, because he's the one who's doing the negotiations with that.
Sure. Mr. Raymond?
What I have found out in trying to sell the timber in the North Shreveport Industrial Park is there apparently, and I'll ask our attorney to correct me if I misstate anything here, there are apparently 3 entities that are actually involved out there. Part of the property is owned entirely by the Parish of Caddo, 100%. Part of the property is owned 50% by the Parish of Caddo and 50% by the
IDB.
Industrial Development Board of the City of Shreveport. There is an Industrial Development Board of the City of Shreveport. It's my understanding that representing them is a North Shreveport Industrial Park Board that manages the site. One of the members on that board, as I understand it, is the president of the North Shreveport Industrial Development Corporation. So there are 3 entities, which I have only recently become aware of. When y'all originally authorized us to advertise the timber for sale in late 2006, I believe it was October or November 2006. And at that point, I tried to, in good faith, tried to contact somebody with the North Shreveport Industrial Development Board and was referred to Ms. Francine Miller, who apparently represented the North Shreveport Industrial Development Corporation. And she brought with her to the meeting a gentleman by the name of Brad Massad, who I thought was the chairman of the North Shreveport Industrial Development Board. I don't know if he was or not. He may have been the chairman of the North Shreveport Development Corporation. In all honesty, I'm confused about what his role was, but he was on the Industrial Development Board. Then the corporation ran into some problems. Mr. Massad resigned. Ms. Miller was no longer in the picture. And we were told that everything had been turned over to a gentleman by the name of Mr. Bruce Roberts, who we thought was chairman of the North Shreveport Industrial Development Board. So we began trying to negotiate with Mr. Roberts. I now understand from Commissioner McCullough that he is simply a member of the board.
Right, the 5th member.
He's a 5th member of the 5-person board. I don't know who the chairman of the board is. We contacted the city of Shreveport, and initially we met with their former CAO, or we talked with their former CAO, Tom Dark, told them what our dilemma was. We were not sure the board was active. We were wanting to sell the timber. Did the city have a problem with it? he indicated that he did not, so we proceeded with everything that we were doing. When the bids were let and Weyerhaeuser submitted the highest bid, their attorney, in good faith, said that they wanted something saying that all the bid procedures were followed, which we provided, and they wanted the parish administrator to sign off for the parish share of the timber and somebody from the city to sign off for the city share of the timber, who would have been the mayor. At that point, we contacted the legal department with the city of Shreveport, and after some negotiations with them, they decided that they really weren't involved. It was the Industrial Development Board. So we went back to trying to negotiate with the Industrial Development Board. And that's basically where we are now. And my understanding is that to proceed, we will have to have, I guess, the North Shreveport Industrial Development Board sign off on the sale of the timber. It's my understanding that all the money would probably go to a parish account that is set up for economic development, because we're already escrowing some money for the Industrial Development Board. But that's where we are right now. And we have a representative from Weyerhaeuser with us here today, as well as our consulting foresters. And I would like to get this resolved because, it's time for them, if they're going to harvest that timber, they need to go ahead and make their plans to do that.
Sure. Thank you. Mr. Wilson, have we made a request of the North Shreveport Development Board to sign the appropriate paperwork?
I believe we did, sir.
Yes. When?
I don't know.
Weeks ago, all by email traffic between myself and Mr. Roberts.
Heard anything back from them?
Yes, sir. I've talked to Mr. Roberts. Mr. Roberts is new to this. The board has been relatively inactive until the meeting that was had several weeks ago that's been talked about. I've even given Mr. Roberts temporary custody of some of our files, which I've since gotten back so he can get a background on it. But the point is, they have not yet scheduled a meeting for this particular purpose.
Do we have any idea when? Do they indicate when? What time frame?
No.
That board is chartered by whom? The city or the parish?
That board is a product of a written agreement between the parish and the Industrial Development Board of the City of Shreveport, which was authorized in the year 2002, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner McCullough. And it's composed of 5 members, as she said, 2 appointed by the Parish Commission, 2 appointed by
City.
the Industrial Development Board, I believe, and then 1 the chair of the North Shreveport Development Corporation, whoever that may be.
Okay. What's the city's part in this?
This is where it gets confusing. The other party is not the City of Shreveport, it's the Industrial Development Board of the City of Shreveport, which has one thing in common with the North Shreveport Industrial Board, and that is that neither one of them have met regularly, and both of which are populated by a lawful board of directors, supervisory board, their terms of office of which have all expired. And they have not been reappointments, but under the state law, they continue to serve until their successors are appointed. As far as I know, the North Shreveport Development Board, North Shreveport Industrial Development Board, I don't know of any, I'm unaware of any meetings that they've had until this one earlier, last month, going back until 2004 when they met for the purpose of granting a right-of-way through the property to Center Point or somebody, but other than that, they're relatively dormant.
It's confusing. There are 3 entities involved?
Yes, sir.
Caddo, the North Shreveport Industrial Development Board, and what?
North Shreveport
And the
Supervisory Board.
No, and the Industrial Development Board of the City of Shreveport.
Okay.
The two owners
The Industrial Development Board with the City of Shreveport
is created by those 2 entities.
is created by the Northwest Development.
Is created by the Industrial Development Board of the City of Shreveport and the Parish of Caddo.
Okay, but there's 3 entities, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the North Shreveport Industrial Development Board and the parish created what?
Industrial Development Board of the City of Shreveport.
Of the city, okay.
And the parish created the North Shreveport Industrial Development Board.
Okay.
Supervisory.
Supervisory Board.
And
And their mission is to run the park.
to run the park.
It's to manage the park, to negotiate,
I'm sorry, we've got some static. Okay.
to market the park for industrial prospects and develop the park.
What's the holdup?
The holdup is that we are having trouble getting the Industrial Development Board up to where they feel comfortable in calling a meeting to act on the sale. I don't know how else to put it.
How comfortable you have to feel to call a meeting? Let me ask you another question. What's the city's economic stake in this? Is there any?
Only through the Industrial Development Board of the City of Shreveport, which is an inactive organization, but they would get a portion. That board would get a portion of the money. And what that board would do with the money, I don't know, but I would think the beneficial party would probably be the city.
The city of Shreveport?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I assume this board was, the supervisory board was created by an act of the city and one by the parish. Joint act. Is that what you're saying?
By the Industrial Development Board of the city and Caddo Parish,
By
yes.
the Industrial Development Board of the city and the Caddo Parish Commission.
Yes, sir.
And the Industrial Development Board of the city is not a governing entity.
Correct, but they own that property.
I understand, okay, but I'm talking about for organizational purposes. Somebody's got to have a bigger stick here. Do we have the bigger stick? I guess I'm asking you, if they can't want to comply, how do we go about abolishing this board?
You'd pass an ordinance about, but the agreement was authorized by ordinance, so you'd pass an ordinance.
And we just need, you got to get the city to play ball with us?
You wouldn't have to get the city to play ball with you to abrogate the agreement, Commissioner.
Okay.
To do it.
Well, I think maybe they need to be provided that information, and let's go ahead with it. I don't understand why they would hold this up. If they want to be inactive, obviously they do want to be inactive, then we obviously don't need to have boards that are not going to act, and we can certainly do away with them. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Commissioner McCulloch?
Yes, if you would allow me to explain, I guess I was elected to this office in the year 2000, John. You were here. And I don't know if you're aware that the North Shreveport, and I think that's where the mind game is, with the North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory and the North Shreveport Development Board. Some mind games are being played here. In the year 2001, because this was a pet peeve of my father's, the former Hersey D. Wilson, I immediately sought out this park. And in seeking out this park, there was an intergovernmental agreement dated 1981, during the time Bill Hanna was in office. So after researching this intergovernmental agreement that was established in 1981, and meeting with Bill Hanna, the North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory Board, the name of the park is North Shreveport Industrial Park. The North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory Board is a 5-member board according to the intergovernmental agreement that was revised in 2001. The North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory Board, in agreement with Bill Hanna and the other administration at that time, 2 members would be appointed by the parish, which they are Ricky Hall, Jerry Thomas, and 2 members would be representing the city, which according to Grubb would be referenced by the IDB board. Those 2 members are James Pannell and Mike, I think, Belanger. And the agreement with Bill Hanna was on the 5th member, and we're talking about North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory Board. The board which, according to the intergovernmental agreement, would manage this park. Any sales or negotiations within this park would be done by the North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory Board. And also in the agreement, it stated that this board would meet to transact business as often as needed. In 2000, I went to North Shreveport Development. The parish was giving North Shreveport Development $75,000, and so was the city. You know, Francine Miller would come up here every year asking for monies. I went to Fran to see, because within their program, my district was somewhat a regional part of what they were doing. So I went to Fran to get Fran to help me maybe get some businesses into the North Shreveport Industrial Park, okay? At that time, I could not get Francine Miller to even submit a budget, which was requested by Commissioner Pearson, because it was in his district. She was not willing to produce a budget, nor was she able to help get any businesses into that park. And we're talking about the year 2001. So in establishing this North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory Board, 2 members with the parish, 2 appointed by the city, I agreed with Bill Hanna to make that 5th member whomever the president was of North Shreveport Development, where Francine Miller served. Now, at that time, it was Percy Sharp. We established the board based on the intergovernmental agreement in 2001, with Percy Sharp being the president. We met a couple of times. We also involved Senator Gregory Tarver in promoting economic development in that park. The last meeting that was held by the North Shreveport Industrial Board, with Ricky Hall present, James Pannell present, Mike Belanger present, Percy Sharp, and Jerry Thomas, we were informed that businesses had been cited to go into the park, but according to Percy Sharp, at that meeting it was going to be a surprise. Well, since that last meeting, we haven't found out who those businesses were. And again, the intergovernmental agreement states that this board would be available to transact businesses whenever necessary. Now, the one thing I cannot appreciate coming from our Director of Parks and Recreation, as well as our administrator, is that, and it's in our minutes, that they made an attempt to contact the North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory Board, which they did not. What I cannot appreciate is that you went straight to North Shreveport Development, you acknowledged them to be a member of this board, and you never according to Ricky Hall, you never contacted him. According to James Pannell, you never contacted him. I haven't been able to catch up with Mr. Belanger because they're telling me I don't even think he resides here anymore. And according to North Shreveport Development, they weren't even clear as to who at this time who the president is. The one thing that bothered me is you went straight to Bruce Roberts to cut the deal. You did not contact other members of the North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory Board. But you stated in your minutes that you made an attempt to contact this board, which is not, that's an untruth, okay, according to every member that still sits on this board. Every year that we have voted on board members, these people, if you research the records, have been reappointed time and time again back to the North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory Board. Now, if at any time businesses were to be discussed, negotiated, if somebody said, well, in North Shreveport Industrial Park, somebody's suggesting that some thinning needs to go on in the wood, with the timber over there, I have some questions about that, because the thinning process, I taught a whole unit on thinning. And based on the timber cutting that have gone on in the park, we're not following thinning procedures, okay? But nobody attempted to contact the lawfully appointed board members to negotiate any sales of timber in that park. And lawfully, they are still members of that board. Now, The gameplay again is on North Shreveport Industrial, North Shreveport Development. The reason why I know the difference, John, is you were here when I came right behind Daddy. I was determined to push economic development in that part. I helped to reconstruct or revise the intergovernmental agreement that was in place in 1981. And we revised it in 2001, establishing those 5 members to the board. And only board member that was contacted was Bruce Roberts, whom at the time, the last time they met, the president of that board was Percy Sharp. So you overlooked 4 other board members, and you came straight to North Shreveport Development, who hasn't done anything for the community or for my district. And I actually sought those people out. And again, I did agree to make them the 5th member, but you only went to 1 member. Now, I don't know if you're talking about that was your way of contacting the North Shreveport Industrial Board. Bruce Roberts, as a 5th member, is not the president, and let me say mine, and I mean district. He is not the president of my North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory Board. He is the president, if so, of North Shreveport Development, which makes up the 5th member of the North Shreveport Supervisory Board, and he was the only person that was contacted based on my collaboration with the other members. So no, it's not a dead board. If you had, or if Parks and Recreation sought a need to get with Bruce Roberts, surely you sought a need to get with Ricky Hall, Jerry Thomas, James Pannell, and Mike Belanger, but that wasn't done. Now, and another concern that I have is there was a contract negotiated in 2007. I appreciate you, Weyerhaeuser, for wanting to include the North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory Board, because the contract that was done in 2007, they didn't think enough, or they didn't have enough regards or respect to contact the North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory Board to get a signature. So that timber has been cut and the money is collected, and it's sitting there without the approval of the North Shreveport Supervisory Board. And so that's why I'm concerned. You went in, you contacted 1 member that you, I would say, wanted to be the president of my North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory Board that I actually set up. You go straight to Bruce Roberts, whom at the time the board was set up in 2001 was not even acting as president. But you go straight to Bruce Roberts. My question, how do you know to go straight to Bruce Roberts? Because in the intergovernmental agreement it says that the 5th member would be whomever the president was of North Shreveport Development. So, we'll go get Bruce Roberts to cut this deal. We won't worry about the other 4. We'll say they're inactive. We'll pretend that they don't exist, but lawfully, according to this administration, they do. And right now, you have contracts that have been signed off by this administration prior to notaries signing off, different dates. You know, I didn't want this to come forth as it is, but it stands to be investigated. I have already contacted Steve Prater to do the investigation, because I cannot appreciate the fact that our administration would come forth with untruths that they tried to contact the North Shreveport Supervisory Board, and that's not so. They didn't do that. They went in 2007, they cut $28,800, I think, worth of timber in 2007, and nobody said, oh, let's call Bruce Roberts, or let's call the 5th member of the North Shreveport Development Corporation, or let's even call the other 4 that are lawfully and legally still members of the North Shreveport Supervisory Board. You went in, you negotiated the deal, the contracts were signed by this administration, and you cut the timber and you collected the money. $28,008, and the Supervisory Board knows nothing about it. But again, thank you, Weyerhaeuser, for acknowledging and honoring the fact that we do have a live, lawfully appointed North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory Board according to the intergovernmental agreement, would manage, negotiate all sales and leases within that park and be willing to transact business when necessary. And if my board members would have been contacted if it was necessary, I'm sure that they would have carried out business, because that's why I had them appointed to the board.
Can we send him a certified?
Yes, ma'am.
Sign the documents. Sign.
Maybe I shouldn't have made that joke about John quitting smoking. Okay. We're going to take a little commercial break. There are several other commissioners that want to have something to say, but Congressman Fleming is here. And before John messed my meeting up, I had a nice little get up for us in the back there, and we were supposed to be out at 4:30 and all of that, but that's not going to happen. So if you don't mind coming forth now, if you don't mind, good to see you.
Does that mean we get everything in the back?
I'm in for a recess. 30
Yes.
minutes so we can meet with the Congress.
Yeah, it is. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to call a recess. That's what I'm going to do. Call a recess, and then we'll resume in 15 minutes, without exception.
So we go back in the back now?
15 minutes.
How long?
As far as the subject that we left on, my question, they said these boards, why are there 3 boards? Three entities. For the 3
2 appointments by the parish.
3 entities putting board members in place.
Right, for the
One board.
supervisory board, right.
Okay, got you
It
covered.
actually supervises and negotiates all sales and leases in that park.
Okay, how many businesses are there in the park right now?
2.
Okay, that's what I thought. As being a sales rep, I made calls in that business park, and as far as I can remember back since the mid-90s, there's always either been 1 or 2. It's never grown to any significant balance. So my question is, are they required by charter to have a certain meeting quarterly, yearly, or anything?
Not that I know of. I just know the intergovernmental agreement states, I think in about the 5th paragraph, and I'd like to urge each one of you all to request a copy of the intergovernmental agreement for North Shreveport Supervisory Board. What they really do is just manage the park. They collect the funds and distribute the funds.
Okay, well, that falls into my next question. If they manage the park, how come it's taking them this long to have a meeting to sign a piece of paper?
Because nobody has contacted them in regards to transacting any business in that park. What you've got to understand is, in 2001, when I set the board up, I went to Francine Miller with North Shreveport Development.
Yeah, I heard all that.
I've talked with Randy Lucky. He knows that I've come to him regarding getting businesses in the park. And because that highway is torn up, General Motors doesn't want to come in there and do anything. And there are some other companies that are not willing to come in there because Highway 173 is a mess.
Well, I can tell you, General Motors would never do that because it doesn't fit the bill for General Motors. It's not.
Well, it
at
has
the
been
plant.
up for consideration at some
Okay.
point.
Well, my question simply was, for the timber lease or the document at hand, they knew that it was being done. The board should have known it was being done.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Why is it taking so long? And that's my question. Why,
The board
if they
just
had,
find out.
wait a minute. My question is, If they knew that the timber was being done, a contract was up, all they had to do was ratify that, why is it taking them this long?
When you say if they knew, the board
The
just
board.
found out about a month ago that timber had been cut, period, because they had never
Well,
been
if they don't have a
notified.
meeting but once every 5 years, I'd say they don't know what's going
And
on
that
out
was
there.
because it wasn't necessary. The last meetings that we had was regarding bringing businesses in, and businesses refused to come in because of the condition of the highway. Unless the state fixes the highway, you're not gonna get any businesses in the park.
So in other words, when we go down to Baton Rouge and ask for funds, that's neither here nor
Well, I
there.
know Randy Lucky can attest to the fact that I have tried to get businesses in the park.
Well, and we're trying to get businesses
And
in
because of
Southern
that
Hills, too.
highway, businesses are not willing to come, and that is a state highway.
Okay, but my main deal was you got a board that doesn't meet, and that tells me that that board either has a problem or we need to address
Now,
it.
you have some people that are not
Wait a
willing
minute.
to respect that board.
Ms. McCullough, respectfully, I'm making a statement which says that if you have a board and they are duly noted as the members of that board, they should in fact meet, whether it's just to say, hi, we've met on this day, nothing's going on, we're adjourned. We do it every time. We have to come here whether we have something on the docket or not. So that's my point of view. Thank you.
So even if they met, let me ask, can I speak?
Yes.
Were you asking her a question?
No, that was my personal statement.
Okay. Push your button, Commissioner McCullough.
I did.
One more time. Commissioner Dominique?
Oh, I got a few questions. I've gotten a little bit confused. The way I was understanding that there is property that's owned by the parish, correct? Individually, and that timber has been cut or it's about to be cut?
Let me, you asking
I'm asking Charles Grubb.
I want to
I'm
make
assuming-
sure, okay.
The park is owned, most of the park is owned equally between the industrial, there's 50...
Co-owned.
Co-owned by the Industrial Development Board of the City of Shreveport and Caddo Parish. There's another piece of park that's owned by Caddo Parish outright. But in the agreement that we've been talking about, that the parish and the IDB entered into in 2001, we delegated to the board the...
What board?
The North Shreveport Industrial Park Supervisory Board,
Oh, the
the
supervisor.
responsibility to manage the park, both the land that we own in division with the IDB and the land that we own ourselves. So it seems, so if this agreement is gonna stay in effect, then it's the responsibility of the supervisory board to manage the park, and if it is appropriate to sell timber, then they would be the ones to actually sell the timber on all of the park property that owned in division with the IDB as well as the parishes.
All right, so on the property that's owned by the parish and co-owned with the parish and the Industrial Board of Shreveport, something along that line.
Yes, sir.
And that's the name who the deed is in, but there's an agreement that the supervisory board manages the park.
That's correct, and I'm looking at the agreement. It has the authority to negotiate, enter into sales and lease agreements, and basically has responsibility for the maintenance, upkeep, operation, and repair of the facilities. of
And
the
that
park.
advisory board would have to make the recommendation. Once that advisory board makes the recommendation, then we can go forward with selling the timber,
I
correct?
think they can actually consummate the sale.
Well, you would think, I mean, I would think that whoever owns the
Well,
name the
I mean, there's a written contract
Isn't
whereby
that
the
authority?
owners have authorized this organization to, among other things, negotiate, enter into sales or lease agreements for the park. Now, if you were checking title on the property that was being sold to somebody, as the
I understand.
purchaser, you might want a resolution from the commission, but
Has the advisory board, are they refusing to sign the deed, timber deed or go forward? Is that the problem?
no, sir, I wouldn't say they're refusing to do anything. You know, Ms. McCullough's right about one thing, and that is that the only person on the board that I've talked to is Mr. Roberts. And I was led to believe that Mr. Roberts was the chairman of the board. I've done email communications with him. I've talked to him on the phone. I've been out to his office. I've talked to him as the chairman of the board, and if he's, or the president, or whatever, and if he's not, then it's news to him in that I've just assumed that. And what I've been trying to do with Mr. Raymond's help is give him the information he needs to feel comfortable in calling a meeting. That's kind of where we are. And he does a lot of traveling. He's a private citizen. He hasn't done anything wrong. He's been given this responsibility. He's volunteered to do it. And all I can tell you, Commissioner Dominic, is as of today, as far as I know, he has not felt comfortable in calling a meeting of that board.
Now, who is that? What's his name? Bruce?
Bruce Roberts. He's Bruce Roberts. He's a private citizen, certified public accountant that practices up on North Market.
Why did you think he was the president or the chairman of the board?
Larry's right here. Larry, you want to?
Mr. Raym, can you help with that? I mean,
what led you guys to believe that Mr. Roberts was the chairman of the board?
Initially, when we met with Ms. Miller, she brought Brad Masad to the meeting.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
I was under the impression that he was the chairman of the board. Now, apparently Percy Sharp was the chairman when he was also president of the Shreveport Industrial Development Group. At some time, Percy, I think, was the chairman of that board. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I'm asking you, okay. And my understanding is these are the people that have taken the same position that Mr. Sharp, I guess, held at that time. And so, you know, we were under the impression they were chairman of the board. And that may not be true.
Okay. Well, and the advisory board, we're having a hard time for them meeting. Is that right? I mean, when are they, all right, the question is, when are they going to meet? Do we have any clue?
They met May 6th.
When are they going to meet to agree to allow this timber to be cut?
When this situation get worked out,
What situation?
with not being notified when businesses is being transacted in the park.
What business?
Only Bruce Roberts was notified. You know, my question is, how did you know to contact Bruce Roberts? The reason why you knew to contact Bruce Roberts, because in the intergovernmental agreement, the board is made up of 5 members, 2 of the parish, 2 of the city, and the 5th member of North Shreveport Development. Why would you go straight to North Shreveport Development? Why? Why didn't you go to Ricky Hall, James Pennell, Mike Belanger, and the other guy, Jerry Thomas? Why did you go straight to Bruce Thomas? Why did you go straight to Bruce Roberts? Because there is something in writing that says the 5th member is North Shreveport
Commissioner
Development.
McCullough, Commissioner Dominique has the floor.
Who is the,
Let me just say, for all commissioners, if you're asking a question, because some of them, I can't tell if they're rhetorical or if you're stating them to a specific person. So if you want Mr. Raymond to answer,
Okay.
address it to him, or if you want Attorney Webb to answer, ask that person. If you want Commissioner McCullough to answer,
Okay.
then ask her.
Mr. Grubb,
State her name,
do you know who the advisory board is composed of?
yes, sir.
Can you give me those names?
The commission appointees are Ricky Hall, the same people that Commissioner McCullough said otherwise, earlier, Ricky Hall and Jerry Thomas. And the IDB appointees are James Pennell and Michael Belanger, whatever.
Have they been, so this advisory board is apparently not meeting to, and we don't know when they're going to meet or when they're going to take this issue up. Is that correct?
From my perspective, that's correct. Yes, sir.
And have their terms expired, every one of these? Do we know that?
Yes.
I understand from talking earlier that these terms have expired.
Yes, sir.
And we don't know when this board is going to meet to take up this issue.
Correct. Their terms are 2-year terms, and I'm not real sure when.
Have any of these other persons been contacted other than Bruce Roberts about setting up a meeting?
No, sir.
That's all I have.
Commissioner McCullough?
And that was the point I was gonna make. Have any of these other board members been contacted to transact business according to the agreement when necessary? Because we can't get businesses in the park due to the condition of the highway. So the park is sitting there with lots and lots of timber that somebody says, oh, it needs thinning. And again, I question the thinning process. What I see is not thinning. What I see is cutting of timber, selling it, and collecting the money. And I think it's so unfair to consider abolishing a board when we as a body or our administration fail to contact every member on that supervisory board. We failed to do that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You finished, Commissioner McCullough?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I'm trying to remember, Commissioner Lynn, have you spoken already?
I have
Because
not,
we had
no.
a break and I can't, what about you, Commissioner Jenkins? Have you spoken? Okay, have you spoken before? I just want to make sure, because I've got,
I have not spoken on
Okay,
this issue
okay,
at all,
that's what I
but
wanna
if
make
there's,
sure.
if there's some
Okay.
people ahead of me, they can't.
okay, hold on, Commissioner Jenkins. I was just trying to, because I had something and I wanted to make sure I had given everybody else an opportunity to speak. Commissioner Lynn?
Thank you, Madam President. Attorney Grubb, the North Shreveport Industrial Supervisory Board, do you have a copy of their bylaws?
No, sir.
Will you get a copy of their bylaws for me to read, please?
I will attempt to do so, yes, sir.
Thank you. Attorney Grubb, who called the May 6th meeting?
I don't know, Commissioner.
Well, if they didn't know, then somebody called it. And I think that James Pennell lives in New Orleans and Mike Bollinger doesn't live in Shreveport either. And so there's two people that aren't even in this area, to my understanding. And please, I'm welcome to be corrected by anybody. And if their terms expired in 2003 and they just met this last May 6th, and nobody knows who called the meeting on the May 6th, could we get a copy of the minutes for this May 6th meeting so we could see what they talked about at that meeting? Does anybody have a copy of those minutes? Who would we call to get a copy of the minutes if nobody knows who was there and nobody knows who called the meeting?
Are you asking me?
Yes, I'm asking anybody. Does anybody know who called the meeting?
Direct it.
Direct,
You need to direct that to a person. Direct it to a person if you
Okay.
don't know.
Commissioner McCullough, since
Yes,
you
sir.
seem familiar with what's going on, do you know who called the May 6th meeting?
After I was contacted, I contacted the members like the Caddo Parish Commission should have.
Okay.
I
And so you-
contacted the members. It was very easy to do.
And
And they met.
they met, who met at this meeting?
Ricky Hall, Jerry Thomas, and James Pennell wrote a letter of proxy. Shirley Gardner met in his place.
And were those the only people in attendance at that meeting?
No, there was another young man, I don't know, his name is in the meeting minutes, I don't know his name, but I know the NAACP president was present.
Okay. Were you at that meeting?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Who was acting president at that meeting?
Actually, they appointed officers.
They appointed officers at that meeting?
At that meeting, that's correct, because they had not met since Percy Sharp died.
Since-
There was no reason to meet other than the timber cutting, and they were not notified.
Well, I went to the industrial park last week and looked around. The only active business that I saw was International Paper, and they had barbed wire all around it, and it was obvious that there's been no supervisory anything out there.
There's a chemical company there also.
I saw another building, I just didn't see any
A
action.
chemical plant.
Do you know how, Commissioner McCullough, how I would get minutes to that May 6th meeting?
I'm pretty sure the acting secretary wrote minutes. As a
Which
matter of fact, the
person?
last time I met with the administration and we had this discussion, the last thing I told them that this committee met and that they did have minutes available for their use.
Who was the acting secretary at that meeting on May
Gardner,
6th?
Shirley Gardner,
Shirley Gardner.
the proxy for James Pennell.
Point of information. Please. Mr. Grubb, can you proxy to someone who's not a member of the body in which you serve?
Not if it's a public body, Commissioner Escaday, and I don't know that I'd want off the top of my head to say whether or not this is a public body or not. But my initial impression would be that it is, but I don't want to say that as a
Find that out, and we'll find out the answer to that question, because I don't believe you can do that. And I believe this is a public
If it's
body.
a public
If it's appointed
body,
by this
you
body
can't
or the city. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Grubb, for clarification, I was just trying to find out exactly what Commissioner Escadade had just asked you or said. And so Shirley Garner could not act as a proxy for James Pennell? Was that the question? And act as secretary and take minutes on his behalf since he's not there, since I think he lives in New Orleans?
All I'm saying, Commissioner, is that, as y'all well know, proxy voting is not permitted on public bodies because that's
Correct.
a violation of the open meetings law.
Yes. And so there was not even a quorum then if there was just two members of
If
a five
the
body?
attendance was as Commissioner McCullough indicated, I don't think there would have been, I don't believe there would have been a quorum there. Yes.
So there was not a quorum. And so even under notification by Commissioner McCullough, there still can't be a quorum for this governing body to make a decision on the selling of timber or not. And since they haven't been there in so many years, and since their term expired in 2003, though they stay in office because we haven't renewed or changed their membership, and since nothing can be done with this industrial board because the highway's not improved, I don't understand why we haven't already abolished this board.
Well, if that's a question, the only thing I can tell you, Commissioner, is that that property out there is an asset to the parish and an asset to the Industrial Development Board. So somehow or other, it needs to be taken care of. You know, if not by that entity, then I think the Commission and the IDB ought to come up with another way to
There seems to be a lot of residential development out there, though no commercial development. Is there a way that we could dissolve it and sell it as residential?
If the Commission determined that and the IDB determined that the property was surplus, that we weren't going to develop it for industrial purposes, you could just put it on the market, yes, sir.
Well, that would seem the correct way to do it. Anyway, no further. Thank you, Madam President.
Well, let me call on a real lawyer, Commissioner Jenkins.
What exactly are you saying? I have nothing to do with those comments. Let me begin by saying but, first of all, thank you,
Sam,
Madam
you must be
President.
going to Washington tomorrow.
In all seriousness, though, I mean, just listening to this debate, I think there are, and I believe our parish attorney, and I believe Mr. Dominique and Ms. Frazier, who are also attorneys in the room, would probably agree with me. You got some very intertwined legal, financial, and maybe some ethical considerations that are going on in this transaction. That's just based on what I'm hearing. It's not based on what I'm not hearing. And I do believe, if I can get a second, that this matter, it should be sent to either the Finance and Appropriations Committee or either the Natural Resources Committee, so that some due diligence can be done. I'm disturbed by some of the things I'm hearing about what was how it was handled in the first place. I'm a little more disturbed by what I'm hearing about the fact that there may be some other transactions that's related to this. I just really think dignity of this body really requires us to make a very thorough, detailed investigation. Because number one, with all due respect to what you said, Commissioner Lane, that's not going to resolve the problem. Trying to abolish the board and come back and doing these things like that, I think is going to add more fuel to the fire. May end up in court behind some of these suggestions that we're making. I don't think it was handled very well in the first place. I'll be honest with you. It never should have got to this. It never should have got like this, because we ought to know what we're dealing with. We should have people out representing that they're something that they're not. Then secondly, we certainly can have people who say that they're on a board and refuse to carry out their duties. There are legal remedies for that. And I'm sure that, the lawyers in the room are aware of that. You cannot say that you're a commissioner and then refuse to carry out your duties as a commissioner. You cannot sit on a board that you've been appointed to and refuse to carry out your duties as a member of that board. You just cannot do that. Then you have a contract that's all tied up in here, with third parties who are basically innocent. They're trying to get the deal done. And thought that they were dealing with, in all due respect, they probably were dealing with a legitimate body of people who could get the deal done. I want to recommend that maybe go to either Finance and Appropriations Committee, so it can be thoroughly looked at, and a remedy can be fashioned, or since timber is involved, it can go to Natural Resources Committee, so it can be thoroughly looked at, and some remedy can be given. Come back to this body with a remedy, because we're still on the admin report with all these questions, and it doesn't make any difference we stay here all night, but I don't think you're going to resolve it here tonight in this session with what I'm hearing. I want to make a motion that it go to a committee, so one out of two of those committees, so it could be thoroughly looked at, thoroughly investigated. We got a right to investigate it, and then come back to the body and hopefully come to the body with some kind of remedy for the situation.
You're gonna leave that with presidential privilege?
Certainly.
Commissioner Thibodeau?
Is anyone paid on this body, on the supervisory
You're posing that to Mr. Grubb?
So anybody can answer the question? No one's paid?
I can make a comment that better not be paid.
I would have to say, what are they
Caddo Parish
supervising?
Commission, you're not paid.
Grass growing? At the very least, I think that we need to seriously consider appointing a new board, because obviously the people that are involved either A, don't even know they're on the board, or B, can afford to wait 5 years to even meet. I mean, there could have been members of the board that died and the other members wouldn't have known about it. I mean, I don't think anybody in their right mind can defend any board that hasn't met on business in a 5-year period. So obviously these people to me, are not interested in serving on that board, and I would like to either see the board abolished or that we just appoint new members. That would be my suggestion. And as far as this going to a committee, it seems like, if I understand, that if we can find 3 of the 5 members that are still alive and that will gather for a meeting and that would agree to sign the contract to sell the timber, then 3 should be enough. Is that correct, Mr. Grubb?
Yes, sir.
So if 3 out of the 5 are, and if 2 of them live out of town, I'm wondering, because one of them that was mentioned who lives in New Orleans is also on the Port Commission.
He doesn't live there.
He doesn't.
That's correct.
City appointment.
He maintains residency in Shreveport.
In Shreveport. Okay. All right, but I don't see any reason that if we could call all members of the board who are currently still on the board, even though their terms have expired, and find 3 that are willing to sign the contract for the timber sale, then it seems like to me that's what we need to do, because somebody's going to benefit from this money, and nobody's benefiting from it now, because there's, people haven't been taking care of their business. So my suggestion would be to contact the 5 members and see if 3 are willing to sign, and let's get that done. And then let's look at whether or not we need to appoint a new board or abolish it or whatever we're going to do.
Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Madam President. Not to belabor this point, I know a lot was said today, but I just, for the record, want you all to know that the administration, and given due diligence, trying to find the appropriate people, perhaps we didn't know, but the other folks on the supervisory board, and that's why Mr. Raymond went to who he went to. But all the monies is here. The check made out to the Caddo Parish Commission, and one check's made out to the North Shreveport Industrial Development Board. There's not a penny of that money has been spent otherwise. So what we have here is a pending sale of $187,000. $38,000 will go to the North Shreveport Development Board, and $150,000 will go to the Caddo Parish Commission, and you typically use that money to reappropriate for economic development. So that's where that money goes to. So no one on the staff have any personal thing to gain from any endeavor that we are dealing with, other than to try to sell the property to pay off the foresters, by the way, whom approached us with this idea because they saw the property and it being right for harvesting, and that's why we got to this point. And we started this back in 2006 when the Parish Commission passed a resolution for us to go forward. So if a lot of mistakes were made, they were made in earnest, not because we intentionally tried to slide anyone. We would talk to anyone if we know who to talk to. But we're at a point we just need to find out how do we get the authorizations we need so we can sell the property, sell the timber, and move forward. The road is not going to be repaired. We've been allocating for that road for the last 7 years. The road going from 220 up to Blanchard is $35 million. The state told us they'll not put a penny in that until I-49 is done. So we will not see any improvements on that road anytime soon, other than the year before last when it was overlaid up to Roy Road. And that's it. So we just need some kind of way, commissioners, to resolve this so we can sell the property, sell the timber so we can move on. So we do apologize if we offended anybody in the process, but it was not our intention to try to offend anybody by not contacting the right people. We just didn't know who to contact. That's all I have to say.
Commissioner Epperson?
I'd like to make a motion to end this debate relative to this issue. If the administration has finished with its administrative report, if I can get a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Please vote.
Hanging out, this thing going on. No more. Playing.
Kim said he had any discussion.
Okay.
Okay. Communiques and reports, Commissioner Epperson?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'd like to report that the Code Enforcement Committee met today. We had Justice of the Peace present. We had a quorum of the committee members. We discussed some tweaking of the proposed ordinance, which I think all of you should have a copy before you. We did a little language change, such as in Section 11.2 violations, paragraph A, the items that are highlighted, inoperable, and we added garbage cans more than 24 hours after garbage has been collected. We also spoke with the Justice of the Peace relative to compensation. We are not adding a particular agreement as to compensation. This is an ongoing situation for our JPs and the constables. We're going to possibly do that administratively at some point in time through a cooperative endeavor. Also, we spoke about the possibility of possibly some budget from the commission as to some stipulations for the constables at a certain point in time. Also, we spoke in relations to providing the constables with digital cameras, which all this would possibly come under whatever budgetary means that we may enact if it's the will of this body at a future date. We had a good spirited debate from some of the JPs from all areas of the parish, basically. Also, we discussed a form of ticket possibly being proposed between the JPs and the constables and the administration staff as to the type ticketing process that we would use. So at this point in time, I think we have something that we can present to the people. I, for one, have been getting a lot of calls relative to this particular ordinance. I've had several meetings out in the community and been getting good, strong input relative to it. And I would ask that if we possibly could, that we would move this forward to Thursday's agenda for further action on Thursday. Right. Okay. Well, I'm sorry, that's right. Well, I mean, at the point in time when it comes to that, but I'm just saying that's my recommendation is from the committee. So that's my report from the committee.
Commissioner Dominique?
Just wanted to remind everyone that the Park and Recreation Committee is having a tour of the parks in the northern part of the parish June 8th, next Monday. And in order to figure out the bus or van that we need, trying to get can we get a show of hands who's planning on going? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What we're planning on doing is probably meeting here at 9 o'clock. Is that right, Larry? Leave here at 9 o'clock sharp and go probably to the Fleming and the one on Blanchard first, and keep going down up to Rodessa and I guess Myron Murdis and Earl Williamson and those, and hopefully we can grab a bite to eat lunch somewhere. So, we'll see y'all here at 9 o'clock. Here at 9 o'clock sharp.
Tell me there's donuts, I'll come.
We're going to eat, so hey, Larry at 8. We're going to eat, so Cox will be there. Randy will be there too.
Officer Cox.
Monday.
The course administration would like y'all to come. That's all.
Okay. Alrighty, I made a mistake earlier on our meeting date in July. Thank Commissioner Epperson for bringing it to my attention. We did not cancel our second meeting in July. We actually rescheduled it to July 21st. We're going to do the work session and the meeting on that day. So, July 21st. Is that right? The July 23rd meeting will be rescheduled to July 21st.
Monday is the 20th, so that'll be the work
Oh, I'm
session.
sorry.
21st will be Tuesday.
Okay,
So it'll be
21st.
back to back.
Right, okay. So
Monday,
we'll
the
have,
work session, the 20th.
And-
July, Tuesday, 21st, the meeting,
okay.
We're going to have it
Gotcha.
back to back.
same meeting?
Mhm.
So, apologize for that. Okay, Mr. Spears?
Yes, ma'am. You got a letter from Shirley Hamilton wanting to be appointed to the Pioneer Waterworks Board. No old business on the agenda. New business, your annual selection of the official journal. No action needed today, but you will have to act on Thursday. You have your 2 bids before you.
Recommend for Thursday's agenda.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Epperson, seconded by Commissioner Dominique. Any discussion? Commissioner McCullough?
No, that was, actually, I wanted to speak on the communiques and report when the letter from Ms. Shirley Hamilton was addressed. I was going to ask that it be forwarded to Thursday's agenda to be voted on effective immediately.
Second.
Okay.
We got a motion on the floor.
We have a motion on the floor, so let me get that one after this. Please vote. That passes. Commissioner McCullough?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to move Shirley Hamilton to Thursday's agenda to be reappointed to the Board of Pine Hill Waterworks effective immediately.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner McCullough, second by Commissioner Jenkins. Commissioner Pearson?
Yes, is this the same board that Mr. Woodson was having issues with
Mr. Who?
Woodson about his bill.
Pine Hill Waterworks?
Yes, ma'am.
There's only one Pine Hill Waterworks.
My question was, is this the same board that Mr. Woodson was having issues
If
with?
it's only one, I would think so.
I was just asking, I'm sorry.
Well, I gave you an answer.
Okay, please vote. Oh, man, I'm scared to go out of town. Listen, up. That passes.
They have a motion on them.
Can't believe John, and you said what's the same person.
What reason?
Mr. Spears,
Okay, you have next some introduction of ordinances, for some zoning cases, zoning case P6, order 4888 for the Arts Market.
Commissioner Escaday, did you want to do your?
Yes, I'd like to, if I could get a second, I'd like to make a motion that we englobe both 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, and a special resolution to Dr. Mitchell.
Brother Bob.
To Thursday's agenda,
Yes, ma'am.
And which ones were they?
okay,
Everything
that's,
but 7.
Okay.
moved by Commissioner Escaday, second by Commissioner Baker, any discussion? Please vote. One more time, Commissioner Thibodeau. Okay, that passes. We on item 7, Mr. Spears, ordinance 4891.
Yes, it amends your Riverboat Fund budget in the amount of $100,000 to provide appropriation to the Soldiers Compassion Outreach Ministry and Lake Community Development Corporation.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner McCullough, second by Commissioner Efferson, any discussion?
I like to.
Commissioner McCullough?
Yes, actually, the wording in here, in talking with the parish attorney's office, the word reoccurring should actually be removed. It should have been removed. But I would like to address the fact that during the time that we were planning the budget for 2009, it was explained to me by one of the members of the Ways and Means Committee that we could always come back to amend the Riverboat Fund for funding. And so that's what I'm doing to do, that's what I'm trying to do today, based on the fact that the swimming pools for the city is not going to be open. The city will not be funding the pools. And most of you know that the old Y is actually the location for the lake. They have an indoor Olympic pool that needs to be funded, and they're needing additional funding to actually operate that pool. And it's somewhat centrally located as far as 4 or 5 of the districts go. So they need additional funding to actually operate that pool based on what's going on with our after-school programs, Star Boot Camp, our students not having enough programs to attend. Soldiers of Compassion, which receives monies from the city, those monies are being cut, as well as some state and federal monies. And so they're also in need of additional funding as well. So I selected this time to amend the Riverboat Fund to try and get funding for both of these agencies.
No other commissioners, please vote.
Move it to Thursday.
This is
Move
the
it to
move to
Thursday.
Thursday. Vote register. That fails. The rest of the agenda is the consent agenda.
You've got one motion by Commissioner Jenkins.
And we moved that when we in Glow voted, Mr.
Oh, I didn't, okay.
Spears.
All right, I thought that was left out.
Looks like there's no other business.
For adjournment.